Hey guys, we're back with part 2 with Leo. Make sure you check out part 1 where we talk with Leo and Justin. Today we're going to get into his road glide. We obviously talked a lot about the whole father-son thing, kind of your background and everything, and the first part of this little series.
Right, how we got here.
Yeah, so let's jump right into your bike. Kind of high level, what was your thought? You went in to get a bagger, you're going to build it, kind of what was your end goal? What did you have in mind?
Yep, so what happened to 2018, I originally was going to buy a street glide. And I was debating between a street glide and a road glide, and I mentioned in an earlier part of the episode that some of my influencers, for instance, Victor Mod Glide, he was a street glide guy, still is obviously. And there's a certain point when a street glide gets triple clamps and you can see it and it undoes itself. It had a good look, and it might have been a slight big wheel bagger carryover, and I was never in that era, but you see a lot of street glides. But we did settle in on the road glide and hunted this bike down, and actually it came from Hawaii. And I bought it, had about just under 2,000 miles, maybe about 1,800 miles on it. And settled on the road glide, and there's a few different things, mostly influences, the Kevin from Big Bear and Matt Spadaford, and just a couple guys that the road glide look made sense to me. And I did ride it for the first time I ever rode a bagger, and I had to get used to the whole spatial thing where the forks turn, but the front doesn't turn. And if you go back in time, do you remember Ness's 57 Chevy bike with the long nose? That's what I always felt like on a road glide. Like it was going to be like this really weird spatially thing, but quite the contrary to it. I loved it, and you can just sight down the fork. So that's how we got to be a part of the road glide family. Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people, I guess most everybody, that's the big difference. Obviously, like whether it's the fairing turns with you or you stay stationary. And I think I'd only ridden a bagger once or twice before I got it, and it was on it was a road glide, so I kind of had some experience on that. And then the adventure bike I had, it has like a little more like the rally type fairing, and it's stationary, so the forks turn and all without it. So yeah, I'm the opposite. I feel like it'd be weird with that fairing that turns with you, but probably what you're used to. I got used to it in about 3 blocks. I wasn't sure. It's kind of a funny story. We bought this in Southern California, and those watching the episode, they're going to clown me that I didn't ride it home. We had more business. We went down to get it. Justin was getting some parts for his dyno. We were picking up a piece at a painter, so it needed to be trucked home, so to speak. But we got a U-Haul trailer, and I'll never forget, it was down off of the 15, and literally the left turn out of the dealership, the bike fell over in the trailer. Oh, man. So I was like, is this a sign? What's going on with this? Thank God it didn't get too badly thrashed. It scuffed up the fairing, but I guess maybe that was the seed getting planted that paint had to come.
No, you needed to paint it at that point.
But that was the beginning of our relationship. But we got that out of the way, and thankfully it was good to go from there.
So was it 100% performance baggers? You knew that was the way you were going off the bat?
It was. So I had the Whirl I came in, and we chatted earlier in the earlier episode that, was a pro street bike. And then, I got used to the dynas, and I could have bought a dyna, but you just kind of start to figure out that riding. And, you go to your local dealer, and I went to Red Rock Harley and sat on a bagger, and I go, okay, obviously the bags make sense. It makes sense. I'm not super tall. I'm 6 foot tall, and I have a decent inseam, but I always felt like it was too shallow when you're on it. I'm not a fan. In a perfect world, I'd move, I'd run mid controls, and let's talk about that. But that being the case, I'm like, okay, everything feels good. It didn't have that bulky feeling. Some of the pre-Rushmore bikes, and I'm not pre-Rushmore picking on anybody, they just had a big, heavy, bulky look, that true FL look. Yeah. And the 17 and up bikes, and again, this is 18, when we went to that, they leaned down, and I was just worried it was going to be a heavy, clunky bike, and it was quite surprising, other than the awful factory buckhorn bars that I have laughed about all day today. But it was painful to ride those bars.
Yeah.
But that being said, it felt like it fit me right.
Yeah.
So, and ironically, I have no interest to hop back on the dyno. It feels like I get on it, it feels like a 250 dirt bike. It's little.
Yeah.
And Justin loves it for that reason, because you can just straight rip on it, and obviously you can wheelie and throw the thing around, and it's 500 pounds. But yeah,
I love jumping on our dyno for around town. Like I was always very like anti like bagger. I didn't want one because I tripped on the dyno, and I was like, this works fine.
Fits,
This is plenty fine. It's a lot more fun. I don't have this big heavy thing. And then obviously you said like when they started leaning out the baggers, and obviously I wanted an M8 motor.
Yeah.
It made me want to jump in the bagger. And then now after riding my bagger, and I'll jump on Emma's dyno, and it's like, oh man, this thing is so small. But it's crazy much fun ripping around town. But like they don't touch baggers in terms of like long distance trips, which is a lot of what I do. So
it did get me. Tell you a funny story. I always like to poke fun at myself more than anybody else. Bike started off, and we can get to this. It started off with Flow footboards, and I've since changed many boards past that. But the Flows, and for those of you that have it or considering, they do have sharp teeth. So I rode one day about 700 miles, and I was beat, and I didn't realize I was beat. And I ended back up. I rode towards up to Tonopah and out through, for those of you that know Nevada, out by the dry lake beds. And it was a great little rip. And I went up to Mount Charleston to meet some friends and have some lunch. And of course, I'm in front of a tour bus of people getting off. And I had just a lazy set of legs on me for that day. And I pulled up and I went to make a U-turn to kind of back in. And I just couldn't get my foot fast enough off the Flow peg. And by the time I got it, it was going over. And
at that point,
you just get superhero strength. It went, and I stopped it, and I'm like, I'm either going to break my leg or look like a moron here. And thank God it didn't go over. But it was a great little indicator of you have an 800-pound bike, and it likes to get a little top heavy. And then of course, as soon as you start to put the +2 and 14s, it gets taller. But ironically, it got better. It became more nimble. It felt like it was supposed to be there. But yeah,
easier to handle.
For those of you that can commiserate with me about dumping your bike, or everybody does it to some degree, but I got that out of the way early.
Yeah, especially like first switching over to bagger or something super light like a dyno or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's
but I just remember my
adjustment.
foot was stuck in the peg, and this all happened in literally a millisecond. Like I just didn't have the ability to lift it up anymore and put it down. So I tried to do that, and it was not having it. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad. And then you have to do the thing when you're cool in front of everybody and kick the kickstand up and pretty much, reverse squat my bike up. And thank God that all happened, because I was by myself. So I was like, this could go terrible right now.
That's one of those those Flow motorsport pegs or floors and stuff. They look great, and especially I guess a lot of guys coming off dirt bike is kind of what they're used to. But and
they like the moto look,
Yeah, but those crazy teeth or whatever, they're
work
too much.
They hold your shoe.
Yeah,
and I usually ride in Vans, and don't come at me in the comment lines about being in boots. I get all that. I'm a Vans rider, but Vans with the waffle on the bottom, that's a death grip on those pegs.
Oh,
so you know how that goes.
100%.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I guess we can go ahead and jump in.
Hey guys, excited to announce a new sponsor for the interview series today, Get Lower Cycles. Get Lower Cycles is out of Warminster, Pennsylvania. They've got their own shop where they do fab work, installs, motor work, dyno tunes, whatever you need. They're also a big source for performance Harley parts. They've got a great site set up. They carry suspension, brakes, seats, whatever you need from the best brands out there. Not only is Get Lower coming on board to help me bring more of this interview series to you, they're also going to make it easier for you to find any of the parts that we've just discussed. So for each build, Get Lower is going to create a link that I'll drop in the description that has all the parts laid out that we just discussed. So say you're interested in running a suspension setup we just went through, or you just have the typical wet fairing and bars question is that. All you got to do is click on that link below, and they'll have everything laid out for you. Simple and easy. Make sure you check these guys out. If you like watching these series, make sure you use those links to order parts. Supporting them helps them support me, so I can bring more of this to you. Let's get back to it.
Let's actually start on your front end. Walk us through.
Yeah.
You've done everything from wheels, radio mounted brakes, paint, lights, everything. Kind of start walking us through all that.
Yep. So we kind of, in the very beginning, I knew there's a more, internet debate on what's the most important thing to the bike. And I'm a very hardened believer in brakes and suspension. In the earlier episode, we talked about racing dirt bikes, and my dad wouldn't let me go faster until we get the suspension. I could ride the thing wide open, pegged. So I knew that was ingrained in my head. So back to the old joke of being the paycheck glide. One thing I don't like to do is whether I'm paying labor or I'm working on it myself, I don't like to do things twice. So by trade, I'm in a project management trade. I'm an overplanner. So basically, I have a spreadsheet on this bike from top to bottom and when things happened and when they were going to happen. So the whole idea was to end up financially doing the right thing, not buying the parts twice. So we knew we had to change suspension. So starting on the front, we ended up going, I'm a very big fan of Legends suspension. There's a lot of debates between Öhlins, Legends, GPs. And I got to tell you, I've ridden GPs. They were incredibly impressive. I mentioned to you, all of them are better than me. And I like to consider myself a decent, good rider. So whether you're an Öhlins fan or a Legend, whatever that might be, I guarantee your suspension will outperform what you can do. And if whoever's watching the episode, you're not going to outride your suspension. The Zach Nations, there's a few guys that can do it. You and me, we're not doing that.
Yeah, no.
So what made me go down the path of the Legends, and you've heard me refer back to Jace Hudson in the Fast Life, and I follow a lot of Jace's beliefs. Not just being a fan, just I think the same way. Jesse, I met Jesse in my old business, and Legends being up in in South Dakota and being heavily involved in our scene. Yeah. And I'm not a stunner, and I don't mean heavily involved with the guy with the handout. What I do mean is they're at local events. Yeah. They're vending. I know they're in every Harley dealer. If you need assistance, they're there. What turned me off, and it's not again a negative thing on Öhlins by any means, I have the screw us. If I can touch or click something 73 times, I'm going to do it because I want to try to learn it and I want to try to master it. And what I liked about the Legends is the fact that I could, as a layman rider, I could get them dialed in a weekend and I don't end up having to mess with them much. And as a matter of fact, I've left my compression and rebound where they're at once it's set, and I will only adjust the rears depending on if my luggage is with me and we're going on a long trip. You and I joked earlier about softening them up to try to get through potholes and stuff. I've gotten over that. I don't really care. I want them as firm as possible because I want to be able to set the brake or trail brake in, and I want it to nosedive and plant. Yeah. And I like when it's softer, it wants to wash, and I don't want it to do that. So in the very beginning, one of my dear friends in the Harley industry, and he's in LA, and his name is Junior, Double D on his Instagram, for those of you that know him. He turned me on to a dude named Matt, and Matt and I became good friends, and I have willingly taken my bike to California for a lot of things that I feel are out of maybe my skill set. Okay. And I do have some local help here that before the episode's over, I want to acknowledge and tell some people thank you. But Matt helped me understand how to get bagger suspension to work really well. And in our particular case, it may not be what Legends recommends, but I am running dyno Legend drop-ins. I'm not running bagger Legend drop-ins. I'm running dynas, and I'm running them stiffer than what would normally be on a bagger for my weight.
What's the big reason behind that?
I wish I could tell you the technical end, but it flows better and it actually reacts better on a stiffer compression and rebound. It will slow it down, and when I do put the front end into a corner and I roll the brake on, it will go down and stick. Okay. So being able to run one click heavier on the dyno versus my weight in a Legend, non-heavy duty. Yeah. And I'm not running heavy duties, but for that being the case, it was more of a comfort ride based on an 800-pound bike where the stiffer 550-pound dyno, it worked better. So we changed the fork oil. We have a different weight, a different weight fork oil, and a different amount of ounces that are running from what Legend says. Okay. But it rips. And ironically, one of the local shops that I'm a fan of here, one of their guys test rode the bike, and they helped me do some tires once, and he came back, and on the bottom of the service notes it said, best riding bagger I've ever been on. And there you go. Not prompting that, but you just know when it rips and it runs good, it does. So we did that, and we ran dyno. We ended up using Pro One DLC tubes. It's a dyno tube. And I've messed with ride height on setting them, all the way up to a 1/4 inch up and down. And I know a lot of people go say, let's put the +2 on it because we want the ground clearance. I do agree. But we also still have rake and trail to deal with depending on the factory setup. So a lot of people don't want to finite adjust, but we'll click all day. But I will tell you, 1/8 of an inch difference setting the fork up and down in the tree will make a difference. So we worked on that, got that set, and got to a point where I feel it works for my riding style. So that basic setup is where we went. And then I'd like to shout out also, I'm a big fan of Butch Green and Green Brothers. We went with his hidden axle, cleaned that front end up. we talked about braking earlier with Justin running Lintels, and it's a great setup he's got on his bike. I'm a Galfer fan.
Okay.
So we went with the 11.8 Galfers, sent them to Galfer directly to get the red anodized pins. I know a lot of people, a lot of vendors, you can get them around now, which is cool because the scenes get a little more customizable. But shout out to Galfer, an incredible customer service. And I just recently had them resurface the rotors. As part of every year, I try to do that. I'll whether they need it or not, I'll put new brakes on it. I'll send them up to them to have the rotors freshened up, and it's a service they provide, and it's a quick turnaround. And for those of you that are contemplating doing that, I highly recommend doing it. Fresh brakes are great. And then met up with Steve. For those of you that know Steve from MTS, he's an incredible guy and very wise on brakes. He's the Brembo plug, so to speak. And I got the Brembo set up for the bike, and he helped me with the, obviously it's black and red. That doesn't sound too specific, but he did an incredible job with his powder coater, getting them to keep brakes that are a high wear point, and brake dust is caustic. They've been incredible as far as keeping the red and the black. And then we went through a couple different trial and errors of brake lines. And I do run a different set. Matt from Mad Matt's made my top brake lines, and we went with a micro line for both aesthetic reasons, but honestly, it keeps a good pressure on the controls. And then on the bottoms, we ended up, I didn't want to use a universal line. The lengths never seemed to fit right, and I didn't want the coupled fittings to where. Now, keep in mind, I'm hypercritical, especially on my own bike. If I meet you somewhere and you have universals, I'm not putting you down for that. When you get to the certain part of a build where you try to take apart and make it as best as possible. Sometimes it's cold out, sometimes it's hot out, and I'm sitting in the garage trying to figure out what can I tweak. Those are where those little tweaks come. So we ended up having some brake lines built, and found out the Sano way to do it is Harley, for those of you that want chrome brake lines, they make a new factory brake line upper that will allow you to use a female fitting, and then it is just a super clean Sano setup. So for those of you who do that, that line goes up and over the tank and behind the side covers, and it drops into the block. And it's a pain in the ass to change, but it's the right way to do it. And that helped. So got the front end cleaned up, and we ended up, when you do a +2 front end, they tell you you don't need to extend controls or anything. Ryan, one of the techs at Harley, who I'm friends with, and he's a good guy, he noticed we were getting a odd little bind in the left cable or the left brake line. And in theory, if you cycle through the suspension on a jack, it shouldn't do it. But I felt it do it. I would come out of a corner, and if it wanted to hop, like if I was going to transition from a left to a right S and it would extend the suspension, I would hear this click. And I never knew what it was. And then one day I got a little bit of brake fade, and it was putting air in the system because it was bending the line. So we back traced it to that. So they are, it is a 3-inch line. If anybody's going to build them, it's an inch over. And then we changed the banjo fitting to, handle that little bit of a push out. As you can see, it pushes the lines out. But very happy with that. I'm incredibly happy with the Hoffman wheels. Curtis has been a good resource, and I'm a Hoffman fan. I know there's everybody's got their guy they like, the carbon fiber, but I like Curtis's style, and I'm an incredible fan of his wheels. I entertain BTS wheel or BSTs, and I think they're incredible. I had an experience with a friend locally that hit one of our potholes, and it spidered. And one thing, in fairness to those wheels, those carbon fibers, it wasn't the wheel; they were candy painted, and the candy spidered. But then instead of having Kyle turn me on to Curtis's wheels, and they just have the BST look. They're a very clean spoke wheel that stay out of the way. It's open, and the whole concept to me was to build, kind of like Emma told me, like a mullet, party on the top, and then I wanted the bottom to be race. I wanted when the bike was black. Our friend of the show, Joey Barella, used to joke it's the most underrated or undershared or underfollowed bike on Instagram. Well, you know how black bikes you'd roll up somewhere and there's all sorts of stuff done in the bike, but you just can't tell because I'm not trying to scream it in your face. So that's one of those little details with the wheels. So Curtis offers those wheels in chrome. He offers them anodized and in polished. And I think you can do some custom anodized colors. I chose to get them in chrome. And if you've got ever experienced powder coating chrome, it lays down incredible. And it does make a difference. On powder coat, obviously, will fill gaps in and it can make up for some errors. But when you have a perfect surface that's polished or chromed, the gloss becomes incredible. So I've always been very proud of the wheel. It looks good. It holds up well. I abuse them very bad, and they keep coming back for more. So I'm very happy with the Hoffmans. And if I did a future build, I would consider that as another wheel for
running
me.
the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. But again, Justin running the chromes. He's dad. Nobody can even tell you have wheels because they're black. And I'm like, I'm all right with it.
The people that mattered noticed.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Kind of what you said about black bikes. A lot of times, like black bikes don't get like the attention, especially of like the everyday person, because like paint like this is definitely going to attract them. But like if you're walking by a bike and it's black and you start looking at parts, you're going to notice pretty quick, like especially with like the swing arm and like the radial mounted brakes on Harley, which aren't typical.
Yeah.
Like, so if you know something, you're going to notice all that stuff even without paint. But like, you're not going to get that immediately. Like, oh, what is that?
Right. Exactly. So and then the last of the the wheel group, and this is front rear. I do run ceramic bearings.
Okay.
And I'm not, obviously I love the joke, like I got carbon fiber because it's lighter. Well, I'm still working on losing weight. It isn't about the lighter, but we've done a lot of racing, and it started back in go-kart racing, and we raced CRG karts, and both Rotax and shifters, and rolling mass is rolling mass. And then when you start racing RC cars, like that does matter. So if you want a good investment and it's not a horsepower component, but it's a free spin component, I swear you can tell when you have ceramic bearings. The bike free spins, it just feels good.
Rolls probably a little bit better and things like that.
It does. Someone's going to leave a comment you're an idiot. I get it. Don't buy it. But for me, I had brand new wheels. I had to pull the bearings to powder coat them. I'm a fan of ceramics, so it made sense at that time. It goes back to that. Don't do double labor. Don't put that wheel together. Wait for them to wear out. Yeah,
I consider that because I'm about to put some new wheels on. I considered going to that. So somebody. Justin actually brought it up asking if I want to run them, and so I considered that briefly. I think I didn't just for cost or whatever.
And then keep in mind, a great point. If you can't, then put that at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
And when you're bored and you run out of things to do, that's a good thing to go back to.
Yeah.
And I'm an advocate of that. Some people asking the question, how much money do you have on the bike? It's not really about that, because if you look at it that way, then that means I'm going to be disappointed at some point if I sell it. It's never been about that. It's been about the build.
Building the bike to ride and enjoy. I
enjoy putting money away per paycheck. I enjoy planning the next things. We chatted a lot about it over this last few days. What's that next step? Most people think your bike's done, right? It's not. I've got a laundry list of things to do. And it keeps you fresh. It keeps you invested.
There's always a little bit of something.
Yeah. So that should tie up that front end, pretty good. And again, obviously the Hoffman, the Hoffman fiber, Hoffman carbon fiber front fender, super big fan of. The finish is impeccable. It fits perfect. I didn't have to drill it. And obviously, I think it looks good, and it did well painted, but it fits that look. I do like the new mid one that's longer. A lot of guys are running. I think that looks really clean too. So it's kind of nice to see them both. Yeah.
We'll actually, I guess that'll give us a segue into paint. We're going to hold off on that, but like when you actually brought this up, probably the best looking part of the bike with terms of the paint was the fender and way all the color shows through, and especially like the sun hitting it today and yesterday kind of deal.
Well, quick shout out to Metzler. Again, nobody's comped me anything. This is all paid. But if you're considering cruise techs, I have had incredible luck with those. You and I had this conversation about them. I've never had a problem with Dunlops. And let's not even say there's other tires that I have had problems with. But if just a little PSA for you, if you are considering a Metzler, the rollover factor on these tires are so quick, you might put them on and think the bike is sketchy. And it's literally, and I joked with you, I could ride my Dunlops, take my hands off, look around, and the bike was dead straight, which is a plus for that reason. I got on the cruise techs and looked over my shoulder to get on the freeway, and I was like, whoop, in 3 lanes. And it effortlessly flows. So if you're a counter steer guy, if you're a knee push guy, whatever it is, just know for about a week, you're going to think your bike's a little twitchy.
It's a little bit getting used to.
Man, I called Kyle, dude, what's wrong with these tires? We double checked the dot by the air check valve. Everything was good. I had him one shop, balance them, didn't trust it. Took him to another shop, balanced it, didn't trust it. Static balanced it myself on our balancer. I'm like, okay, it's me.
Yeah.
And then I just went on a peaceful ride. I ripped around the lake, and all of a sudden I just stopped dwelling on it. And then next thing I know, the thing's just carved in, and I'm like, these tires are incredible. We chatted. I don't really care about how many miles my tires get. I know that sounds arrogant. I'm not saying it that way. when the tire starts to get that burnt in look, like the oils are coming out of it. We have a very hot climate. Most of our roads here out in Vegas are asphalt with oil. I religiously change rear tires at 5,000 miles, and I put the front at 7. And I don't care if they're good or bad. I'll give you the tire. Yeah. It's just one of those things to do. I put a battery in it every year. Never had a battery issue. As you get older, I stop waiting for problems to sneak up on me. Yeah,
preemptive stuff. Yeah.
Other than that, and Metzer gave me some really good help, some customer service. They did have a front tire that cupped. It's a wear item, so that's not that's a pile of crap tire. Far from it. You can cup any tire, but for my particular case, I was running a little bit too low of air, and it wasn't because I was not on top of my game. It was just 2 pounds made a difference. So at the time, they had me bump up to 2 pounds higher, and the cupping problem is no longer a problem. And the bike doesn't get loose and still rides smooth. So just something to think about if Metzers are in your mind. But jumping over to that fender, a lot of people say the biggest flex ever is to paint over the carbon fiber. And that's a compliment and cool. And that was always the case. I didn't do that for a flex. When we segue into the paint, it was something that the carbon fiber to me is an element, just like a color. And of course, it's nice to cut weight. I didn't do it for the weight at all. I did it for the fit and finish. And I wanted that element in the bike. I wasn't going to try to replicate it, and frankly, I couldn't afford to do bags. We talked about this. So if and when you're enjoying this episode, or you see the bike on Instagram or maybe in person, take a look at the dash, take a look at the fender. 2 left-hand custom painted at Ricky. I'm a huge fan. He's a great friend. There's a lot of intricate paint going on, and I'm an advocate of paint that goes in and out with lines, striped, not always just back taped. And it was really cool because the carbon fiber became a layer of paint. So I appreciate you taking a look at that. I think you got some good shots, and I'm hoping the readers and watchers get to take a look at it and see. But it's a pretty cool function, and it works out pretty well as far as graphically.
Yeah, I mean, this overall paint scheme, like you said, which all the overlapping lines, some of the carbon shining through, the different colors. So how did that work with the painter? Did you just tell him the colors you wanted, or you just like, hey, do whatever you want to do?
Number one question I'm asked on a regular basis, that and how much was the paint? And so I taught myself how to paint when I was younger. My parents, although supportive in everything I did, had no interest in paying for me to get a Troy Lee painted helmet back in the day. I wanted one like I couldn't fathom. And what do you do when you can't afford it? You figure out how to do it yourself. So I taught myself how to paint with House of Color, and it was painstaking. And I'm not a painter now, so let's just say it was good, but it wasn't my life's mission. But what it did is it gave me appreciation of how paint is laid out and how it is laid from reverse to the finish, and how back taping is essential. So Justin brought it up in the interview. There's nothing more degrading to me than taking somebody's paint to another painter and saying, hey, I want you to paint this, or knocking it off. We have a lot of great painters in the Harley industry right now. A couple you have interviewed or going to, and I know it's coming around the corner. And, I like to, there's a lot, Hot Dog, Flying Iron, Poland is incredible. Jeremy Lucky Strike, Jace, incredible. They're all incredible. There's a lot, and that's just off the top of my head. There's probably 50 more. Loker, there's a lot of them. And if I left you off the list, please don't be offended. It's just, we could go on for an hour about the Harley painters. But in my particular case, Ricky with 2 left hands, he used to be out of San Diego, northern San Diego area. And we kept in touch over a while, and this was something that I knew I'm going to have to save up for. And by the time I actually saved up for this and got through the financial burden of paint, he had moved to a real remote area of northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, in the middle of nowhere. And what makes that interesting to me is I can't just pop down to the shop, because to me, a Vegas kid can go to California like tomorrow. It's 3 hours away. I've done it my whole life. We don't have the scene here. We don't have the shops necessarily here. Much better now, but point being is it was no big deal to go to Cali. So it was nice when he was there and we could interact, but there's an essence of you meddling with the paint. I feel like you need to go, here you go. We have a relationship. I'm going to go away. Let me know when it's done. And I told you a story today of what Poland, our buddy Junior, my dear friend Junior, Poland would send black and white photos of his bike, which I thought was the funniest thing ever. Like, you get a taste, but not really, too much. Like and not only that, don't intervene. Don't tell me what you think or about the colors. And you pay all that money, and I think it's hilarious how we suddenly become experts in everything.
Yeah.
And I get it's your bike, but if you just want two-tone traditional Harley colors, there is some great paint like that. And let's talk about Wheelos Skilos. That bike is beautiful.
Yeah.
And even in his interview, and I've seen that bike 1,000 times, he gave some advice and then let the guy do his thing.
Yep.
So for me, on something technical like this, and again, I told you I wanted full race on the bottom, and the top, which I joke was like a mullet. I wanted it to party. But I am an older guy. I'm not my 23-year-old kid. I'm in my 50s, lower 50s, and I wanted it to have a race look. You can kind of see some helmets in the era. I wanted hard lines. I wanted traditional pinstripe. I didn't want everything, because like panel paint is a lot of back tape stripe.
Yeah.
I wanted actual pinstripe.
Okay.
I wanted things to intermingle, so it had some dimension. And I wanted some colors that went in the Harley world, but were timeless. Wouldn't 3 years from now, maybe I keep this bike for 10 years. I don't know. I'm not a buyer and flipper anymore. This bike, we chatted about it earlier. I couldn't replicate to do this again.
Yeah.
So it needs to be able to sustain. And I gave him those things, and he said, well, let's talk about some colors. And we started off with the red, white, black, kind of like Cody B's.
Yep.
But then I thought the red might be a little bit too powerful, and not for him. I love his paint, but for where I was going with this, I knew the red it needed to be a darker, deeper tone. And ironically, this color red, I hated as a kid. My mom had a late 80s Cadillac Seville, and my dad rolled up for her and bought it. And I'm like, you bought a burgundy Seville? Like, what's wrong with you? But I am a fan of candy red. And so the bike used to be all black, so we did a complete color change into a charcoal gray. And that's a factory Harley charcoal gray color. And we started from there, and then there's like a beach vibe. So for those of you that know Howard Boats or Chiatas, or let's take it to a surf like Hang 10, the red and orange pinstripe came from that. I told Ricky, I want that 70s era beach vibe stripe on there, but I need some color to pop. I need to pull the, crying game colors of the darkness where you ride your bike and you're depressed because it's so dark. And then we debated on whether we're going to do a hand turn leaf. And he wanted to do, I'll give him all the credit. He wanted to do, I guess, what you call it, an oil slick. Yeah. And I just walked away and gave him the key, and man, do what you do, dude. Yeah. And he was good on his time, and he told me it's going to take this long. Are you good? And we planned around summer, and it all worked out great. And I couldn't be more thrilled, and I have to tell the truth, and the story's funny. And you may not even be able to see this, but again, I'm encouraging you to look at the pictures. The bike has arrows all over it. And when I first saw that, and Ricky will tell you the story, and I love them now. Let's preface that. But I'm like, dude, can we take the arrows out?
That stuff.
And he's like, there's like 14 layers of paint. No, we can't take the arrows out. And I'm like, okay. And then, I don't know, it's almost like, for those of you that want to get your bike painted, when you actually see it, it's like your child's born. Yeah. The arrows didn't matter anymore. They were cool. And his thought about it was, everybody's got so much of the same paint. It's only a back graphic, and it's the idea of he knew. I mean, literally, I rode up there, and then I drove up there. And for those of you that taken a bagger apart, so this bagger went up in a 4-door full-size Dodge diesel truck. Yeah. And I'm like, no problem, I'll take it apart. It filled everything. I had to put my luggage in the bed. It was floor-to-ceiling bagger parts everywhere. And so imagine when you come home, when you go up, okay, get scratched. Coming home, everything's wrapped, and it was a fiasco. So the moral of that is I let him do his thing, and I just wanted a little bit of pop color. He put this yellow in, which I love. The yellow's in the helmet, and I don't like yellow as a color. Like, I'm not that guy, but it works. I've heard Jeremy, I've heard Jace, I've heard Poland say they pick those colors that you may not like, but it works with the bike. Yeah. If he would have told me he was going to put yellow on this bike, I'd have put my foot down. And yet it's the only color that makes sense. So the arrows grew on me. They are a back graphic. A lot of times you'll see lace in a panel paint, or you'll see, I like the new ones with the Harley logos. Yeah. All of those are the same thing. It's a graphic to get you to look at it, and it's negative space. So it fit, and it makes sense, and the graphics flow, and I couldn't be more happier with it. He did a great job to me, and I think the fit and finish was phenomenal. And for me, I've got 10,000 miles on this paint, and I have 2 chips now. I literally have one on the front, and I'm thrilled with that, because you have to make that acceptance that you're going to get
you're right, you're going to get it, 100%.
So I did ceramic coat it. I do think that helped, but he did because it wasn't there going, is it done yet? Is it done yet? And it's trying to get out of the booth. It actually got to cure. I got it home and it got to sit in the heat for a little while we put the bike back together.
Okay.
So I think all those things added up to a successful paint job. But yeah, highly, again, check him out on Instagram. Doesn't have a website, but 2 Left Hand Custom Paint, and his name's Ricky, and good dude, and reach out to him and tell him Leo sent you.
Cool. Yeah, it looks awesome. Cool, man. Let's, I guess, since we're starting on the front end, let's kind of keep working our way up to like your fairing. Let's, I guess, touch your light setup up here.
Yeah, so the LP6 craze, I'd like to take a note that I think I had the 3rd harness that Big Bear built in the country.
Okay.
So I got these way back in the day before they became super cool.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit of a challenge trying to figure out how to put them on. It was actually easy, but it was fit and finish. And I'm using Jeremy's filler plate, which I really like. Some people have debated whether or not you like the light out of the hood, so to speak, or back. I like it out. Justin mentioned we come from an off-road world where Baja Designs is the leading light. I know Rugged makes a good product. I like the look of this light. So I was proud to stick them where they were. I ended up cutting the panel, moved them back, pushed them back out. Where they lie is where they lay.
Okay.
So that worked out well there. Moving on inside, we went on with the Wolf 1 triple clamp from Kraus.
Okay.
I use a Kraus Raptor plate for a pullback.
Yep.
I did tempt both a straight and pullback riser. We ended up in the situation we're in now. I like it where it's at. With that pullback plate, I like a straight riser. I have a pretty decent reach.
Pullback plate is already, was it 2 inches or so?
Yeah, so it was a little bit too much in the seat for me. Thankfully, when Justin was doing his stuff, we were, they're a little bit, they can intermix.
Yep.
So we were able to kind of figure out. So I'm running a 10-inch rise. I'm an advocate, again, of having bar height slightly under your shoulder muscle to, for, again, 500-mile days. 200 miles, maybe not, but this makes a difference.
Yep.
I had injured both of my shoulders pretty dramatically throughout my life playing some sports, one snowboarding, the other one racing jet skis. And I went with this ERG bar from Kraus. I like the way it looks. It's not common. Obviously, if you see most bars, they're not running it. It's a Street Glide based bar, and I think simply for the way it fits. But I did like it, and the whole time I put this setup together, it was intended for the gauges to be where they were, the power vision to be where it was. So I could care less about the radio. It has a Sony 7000 deck in it, and it's only there, I'm a moron, because it's red and it matches the bike. I could care less about it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. All my audio comes through my headset. My maps get played turn by turn. So you and I chatted about eventually maybe the gauges might go in there with Justin. My machinist got a really sick little plate. I could see doing that. I have some skepticism on the bars because it is a moving piece. They're bolted on. So I would be lying to you if I told you that almost every time I ride, I don't contemplate, but I have a very good maintenance follow through, and they're checked constantly, and they've never lost torque, and they are where they're at. And I'm a firm believer Kraus makes a really good product. What works for me is if you sat on it, you wouldn't know. And there's a rule of thumb: when you set bars, you close your eyes because your eyes will play tricks on you. But my left bar is slightly pulled back from my right one, and by those ERG bars allow you to move them. So because the impingement hurts by having torn rotator cuff, I could get that in a spot that didn't bother me, and it made the difference between riding a fixed bar versus riding that. Like tomorrow, I could ride 1,000 miles. So it made sense to me, and I do like the look, and I do see a few people run them out every now and then. People reach out to me and say they do or don't like them. I appreciate your opinion, but it works for me. But one of the things that we're going to be doing in the near future is I am going to put the lower triple clamp on it. I've actually debated I might go to Justin's, my machinist, his upper and lower triple clamp, and I might go to a different bar setup, which would be his. And then, as Justin mentioned to you, we discussed that we might potentially be making some of our own billet stuff in the near future. But I'm a My Machinist fan, and I think his products are excellent, so I would do that. Justin was essential in helping me get this power vision to work with the Kraus setup. Because the clamp setup didn't want to, from Kraus, and it's not a negative Kraus thing, it just didn't want to work where the gauges were. There's too many things where it needed to be. The Kraus one wanted to put it up there, so Justin made me a custom piece to run that right where it's at, and it's perfect. So with that gauge setup going, I've got everything I need in my field of vision, so it works pretty well. And then I'm running the Thrash and Supply transition clamp for the filler pieces. And then we run, although they're no longer around anymore, brass balls, carbon fiber, reservoir covers. I do have then another thing that we're moving to is it's going to be I'm going to go to the Brembo RCS 19 controls. My master cylinder clutch side has been on order for a year. It's no negative to the company. Brembo building sport bike parts. It's an uncommon piece. That's coming. And then I saw the guys at Prior Performance are working with another company to make mirror mounts. Because for me, I ride my mirrors. For those of you that want to clown on me for running stock mirrors, there's a reason they're painted and they don't move. I know there's a lot of aftermarket mirrors out there, but it drives me nuts. I set them and forget them.
Yeah, I've got an aftermarket mirror. My right one stays pretty solid, but my left one, I'll set it. It'll at some point want to do its thing. We were going to Milwaukee a couple weekends ago, but halfway up, it was just like flopping around, and so it's having something to sit there and stationary and
And then one little obstacle, and these are those finite details. I need to paint the mirrors that we're going to replace for the Brembo controls. So that means you got to buy 2 sets of mirrors, and you send another set off to get painted, and then you run a set, and then of course Ricky the painter, which I would understand is like, send me your mirrors so I can make sure they're mirrored, they aren't mirrored, so to speak, paint. So all those things are strategies of, okay, right now the weather was great. We rode today, you and I'm not taking my mirrors off right now. So that'll come around when it comes around.
Wait till like middle of summer.
Agreed. But other than that, I don't have any upgrades when it comes to factory music. I took the amp out of it. I want the weight out of it. I took the factory speakers out of it. I don't want any of that garbage in there. And I know those of you guys that run horns and all that good stuff, rock on. But I'm listening in my Cardo and I'm good to go with that. And then we run, obviously, I think the industry standard. And I think you're either running a Memphis Shades or running a Clockworks. They're both incredible. I've ran them both. I like the Memphis Shades. Brian Clock, I'm a big fan of his stuff. That is, for those of you that want to know, the 9-inch smoked. I did run the black once, couldn't see out of it. Looked super bitchin', but man, because of your body height and where it sits, I do sight corners right there. So I pulled that off and we went to the smoke, and it did its job.
Let's jump over here. Actually, your little blinker set up front.
My one piece of the big wheel bagger game. So that's D&D, not the same D&D that makes a Bobcat exhaust, but D&D Customs. And they're super helpful. And I think it's a really simple piece, and it's plug and play. So it's nice on the CAN bus. You don't have to flash anything. And I liked it because it's just smooth and rounded. I know a lot of guys are running the little Baja Designs one now, but to me, no negative to their look. It's just too bulky for me.
I 100% agree. I think blinkers look so much better when they're sleek and you almost don't notice them.
Correct. And I've seen a lot of guys move into the little Kuryakin little micro blinkers, which are super rad. When we get to the rear, I run a Ciro product. I hate the Harley bullets. Just something that I could kick off. I don't know why. It's just that pet peeve thing.
They're ugly.
I hate them.
Ugly,
You build a bike and you're trying to build, and don't come at me, a race bike or a race bagger, the BRL look, whatever. I refer to this as a performance touring. I like the performance bagger, air quote, name, whatever that might be, whether you got a seat and T-bars, I don't even know. But to me, it means you ride your bike far and you ride it aggressive. So if you got a 128 engine and you're running reflectors on your lower fork tubes, go away. Like, get that off. There's some rite of passages you got to do. I never quite understand how some people will dump money in one thing. And where I'm going with this is, I will go to a bar, or I'll tell you how awesome my whatever cam, blah, 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 150 horsepower motor is, and you got stock brakes and rotors, or at worst, stock suspension. That's ridiculous to me. Like, I'm not one to clown on somebody or make fun. I will talk shit in that case.
Yeah, I 100% agree that suspension and brakes are without a doubt the first place you
Number
go.
one, we talked about the Buckhorn bars. I'm a pretty big fan. Change your seat, change your bars, because the ergonomics are their safety. It's important. You being able to get your elbows out, you can corner. But I know it doesn't look cool, but I'd put brakes and suspension on a bike before I put a pipe on a bike. And I know you want the Harley sound and all that. We can talk about detuning the motor. But again, I've ridden with guys that will outride the best, and they just got brakes and suspension, and they can smoke dudes on big motored bikes. So if you got a big motor and you got it all, great for you. I hope you're out riding, and more importantly, I hope you're out riding more than 30 miles a day. But if you, in the performance touring world, when you pack the thing down with luggage and you're up at 8,000 foot altitude and then down at sea level and you're hauling, canyons, my brakes were fading. And again, I'm not making it like I'm the greatest rider. I can ride in the front of the pack. I'm the safe rider, but I can feel my brakes boiling. And we're 115 degrees outside and we're riding a 100-mile lake loop at a clip. you feel them starting to fade, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous, you know. So we went to a better brake. So there's so many good brakes. The new Repifinis are amazing. I think your Behringers are incredible. I love the Brembos. I like the look, and they worked with my bike. That's why we went that route. But that's you know, where we're kind of sitting on those.
So we'll jump to the back there, and then we'll work our way forward. So so running Legends in the rear, right?
I am. So again, we went with a 14-inch Legends. We're running a short HPI. I have no clearance issues. I went through the phase, and I'm a very big fan. I'm running Carbon Visionary mounts. I think he makes a really good product. I think it puts them in a cool place. I am at a stage of my bagger world that I want to now drop my reservoirs almost where you don't see them.
Yeah.
I've had the craziest people, and we all laugh about this, you know, at gas stations. Are those horns? Are they rockets? You know, whatever it is. And I'm not influenced by other people's opinions about that stuff. But there was a time when I wanted the world to see these. And really the only people that know what they are is people that come from off-road world that know what a reservoir is and that cools the oil down. But I'm super happy with the Legends. Their customer service, back to them. I sent them an email. We discussed some things. Matt got those dialed in for me. But notoriously, people like to touch your bike. Let's just put it this way. More than one occasion, I came out and somebody thinks they're a smart ass. And not only will they adjust the compression, they'll go to the bottom of the shock and blow those out too and think it's funny. So if you don't write that down, then you're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So I ended up running myself through the gamut of let's go to a rough road or let's go to a carving road. And then I'm going to click through. And I will tell you, they started at 4 clicks top and bottom. And no matter what, if you go back to that, you're always in ground zero. You can get where you need to be. So that if anybody's struggling of where to go to 4 in the top, 4 in the bottom. Make sure you have your 1 inch of sag, and at that point you're in a fair place to start. And then stiffen up for deep corners, or if you're going to take a cruise on the highway, you're probably fine there. Cool. So we went with the Legends as far as moving on suspension wise, running the track dynamic swing arm. I do want to put a quick mention, because when we talked about the brakes in the front, I wanted to be a little bit different, and not in the sake of cool guy different. I like very thin caliper mounts. And at the time I crossed paths with Performance Machines. And for those of you that are considering them, I do recommend them. I think the products are great, but in this particular case, the mount does not put the caliper in the front where it needs to be on an 11.8 Galfer with a Brembo. It's slightly short, so I had to machine them and re-anodize it to get the caliper where it needed to be properly. But that being said, in PM's defense, their caliper mounts and brakes are intended to use with their rotor. So that being said, no harm, no fault to them. I didn't read. I got happy, stopped at the picture, ordered them, and didn't work through the details. But the front is a PM that I modified. The rear is a Krause hanger. So we do that. Running again, Steve hooked me up with the Brembos. And a little footnote for those that want little finite details. That is a left front caliper. And the reason we do that is it puts the banjo on the top. That way you're not dropping your brake line underneath and a big old swoop. And I got to say, Junior Asper hooked me up. So for those of you who know the Junior, there's nobody better with the details, and he made sure that I did that the proper way. So those are set up, again, running the Hoffmans. And then prior to that, I had a MJK rear axle. I want to just give them I know everybody's got their Dale opinion, but that product worked good. So whether it's a MJK or a Krause, I highly recommend going to an axle that's center pole, so it doesn't wander, especially if you're starting to put a little horsepower or you ride hard. And then the one thing that a lot of people harass me about is I still run a belt. So I took my factory pulley off, I sanded it myself, and then we took it and got it powder coated. So if you look at it, it belongs, it matches the wheel. It ironically has the same shape as the wheel. It looks good. I've entertained the chain. You and I chatted about it. If I do a chain, I'm going to go to an alloy art. And I'm going to probably do some sort of a black-red combination with a gold chain, and will look good. I just don't have to touch it now.
It's like no maintenance.
Quiet, and it's not flinging chain wax on me. And the bike makes, decent horsepower, but not enough that it's going to require it. And I'm not dumping the clutch to wheelie. So every now and then, probably once a month, I'll roll the thing on the stand and make sure there's no, teeth missing. I've changed the belt once at 10,000 miles because we ride a lot of, 2,000-3,000 miles a month. We go somewhere. I don't want to get stuck. Like
for tripping and stuff, and like if you don't have a super high horsepower motor, I think a belt makes perfect sense. Like I'm switching over to a belt. Like I don't have really any motor work done yet, so I don't really.
Don't get me wrong.
Switching over to
They
a chain.
look cool.
Yeah, it's solely a looks thing. I don't really need a chain right now. It's 100% looks.
And with the 14-inch shocks, trust me, with the flat bags, I bought this bike as a standard. It did not come as a special, and I didn't think about the cost of it. Harley's, no offense, Harley, if you're watching, their powder coat's just the worst. So I didn't want the worst powder coat that I was going to powder coat again. So that's why I wanted the flat bags. And honestly, with these bags and a 14 and a swing arm, man, the rear end is as open as it could be, and I love it. So hopefully the next time you and I, or you come hang out with me in Vegas, it might have a chain. Just as of right now, it's on the list, and it's underneath a few other things still. There's a few other things we're going to do. Yeah. But I do run a chain side on that. I do run spools on it, so if we can put it on a moto stand, on a GP stand.
There you go.
It's very nice for service. Moving our way up from that, again, I'm running the Metzler Cruise Tech in the rear. Been an outstanding gripping tire. And then it is a factory OEM fender. I run Zero 3D's rear taillight setup on it, so if you got a picture of that, I'm sure the viewers, readers will see that. I think it's clean. I don't run into them very often, so maybe I'm the only one that likes them. But it just, to me, looks like almost like an Indian, or if a Triumph, or somebody had a modern BMW light on it. It's just all integrated, and it comes with the harness. So although I'm a Custom Dynamics fan for the jumper, when you cut the mullet off, you don't need it if you use this light, because it has it built in. So it was just one step avoided of having to go that route.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it looks pretty sleek back there.
Yeah, so thank you. And then we run Santoro, Fabworks crash bars. I'm a big fan of Mike. He's a hard working, blue collar, busting out stuff. So I run his product front and rear. We did not anodize the pieces. Those are painted, matches the stripe. I run Greg Souza side covers, so the FXR side covers. Obviously, Steve Chamberlain's got an incredible product. With this being painted, I didn't want a hard edge on mine. I wanted the round edge. And I have made the decision, as you can see, I don't run rear pegs. So nobody's riding with me, and it's not a big deal. But at the time when I had somebody riding with me, they were feeling like that leading edge was potentially could get in the way. But in fairness to Steve's product, it wasn't. I put them on the bike, got to feel them. They weren't mine. They were buddies. They were a bitchin' product. But I'm an advocate. If you're going to run a performance touring bike or performance FXR, especially, performance bagger with a swing arm setup, put the FXR side covers on so you can get.
It looks so much better. It opens up. Opens it up back there.
Just looks a little bit more current. Like we always joke if Harley could fix a few things. That's one of those little aesthetic things.
One of those things.
Incredibly happy with my Lucky Dave seats. We've had great conversations in the past week about whether you have a rigid angle seat or you have a roll seat. I'm a Lucky Dave's fan. This seat has gotten 20,000 miles on it in ride time, and never has left me feeling terrible. I personally, my body size or structure does better with that arc.
Yeah, I think it's all personal preference and what works.
Buries me in there if we need it. You rode Justin's Dyna. Not uncomfortable by any means. Your Lepera, I've heard nothing but great things about. So would love to maybe try it, but I'm Dave loyal, so I'm sticking with the Lucky Daves at the point. And again, we got a big ride coming up. We're going to ride up towards San Francisco next week. And I'm looking forward to it, because that seat doesn't put me through any pain, so it's a good thing. And let's see, if I'm forgetting anything in the rear.
Everything.
I don't think so. That covers everything. I got to say, Track's taken a beating in years past about, anybody that makes a custom part, I guarantee you the guy's not sitting around counting your money and not machining it. Good products take, whether it's the raw materials or the time to be made. For me, I'm very happy with that product. There's a lot of other good products out there right now. I got to tell you, man, Justin, my machinist swing arm is amazing. Alloy art piece is literally brilliant. My buddy Brandon just bought it, and it's such an incredible arm. I love the look of the racer. It fit my bike. If I did a block arm, I might do that alloy art. Justin's is so one-off. It's, for those of you that don't know or haven't seen his wheels yet, you'll see. But man, one-off is one-off.
Yeah, dude,
there is nothing better than one-off. And
I'm excited about those. He offered to make me a custom set initially for some golfers I had, and then I decided to switch to the 13-inch bare knuckle paws or whatever. And I had a couple ideas I threw his way, and then he came back with that, which was just pretty awesome.
You got no idea until you see these wheels. But anyways, FXR side covers. I eliminated the pegs. Really cool little finish pieces for those of you that don't know. San Diego Customs just came out with these cool plug caps and a couple different, little designs and things. I'm obviously a patriot, so I'm gonna rock the American flag. But I do like how that all cleaned up where the pegs were in the back. And again, shout out to Junior because he told me that piece, that Karaoke piece that eliminates those holes. And on the other side, you won't be able to see it. You might be able to catch it in one of your photos. I'm running Alley Arts billet block on that side, that motor mount, and that's a really cool piece to me that I like. And that will take us to the clutch area. I think, I don't know, do you want to migrate into that clutch or we want to go somewhere else?
Let's touch a couple of these last pieces and then we'll jump in the motor and we walk through the motor and the clutch and everything like that. So run us through, you got your thrashing setup with your floorboards. And
so, Lance Curry, for those of you that have ever talked to him, that kid is incredible. And a little footnote, anybody that follows me on Instagram, I just went through a pipe debacle. It's twice now. A year ago, I had an oil line blow off and just hose me in the pipe. And the reason I'm telling you this is Lance from Thrashing. If you go to his website or go to, his YouTube, there's a video of how to fix a stainless pipe that gets oil. So I ironically had the same pants you had on last week and managed to melt half of them to my pipe.
Yeah.
But anyways, he had hit me up and taught me how to do this, take care of this pipe. And his products to me are a perfect example of when somebody takes a product that really doesn't need to be tweaked and does make it better. So the reason I switched to these, and I've had a couple different pegs, is ultimately my favorite is the mid-control look. And I know there's quite a few great mid-controls out there right now, but when you make the investment in time to buy the pipe that you want to buy, now I'm in a debacle. What am I going to do? If I'm going to go to a Speed Merchant mid-control, and I am HPI loyal, I'm either going to have HPI make me that pipe, or I'm going to get with Mike at CMP and have Mike make me the pipe, and it's one of the two. So right now it's riding season. Doesn't make sense. Excuse me. So that being said, I wanted something that would allow me to get my feet back. And ironically, it doesn't make sense when I'm telling you this, but it is geometry-wise, it's set up this way. It's a shorter foot peg. So it gets rid of that big, bulky banana look, which is a plus to me. And then it also moves the mount back. So then I run his shorter brake arm, and it's adjustable. So it adjusts by you on 3 bolts, you unclick it, and basically where you clock it. And then I run the shorter shifter. And some might ask why. Well, if your feet are on here, shorter shifter means I don't have to move my foot
to shift
10 inches to get into a gear, into a corner. So the idea of mid-controls is to keep your feet and your controls in one place, doing what they're supposed to be doing, so you can keep the center of the weight on the bike. Ironically, it will let me do that. Where the short shifter's at, I have about a 1/2 inch slide to get up under the shifter if I'm upshifting. Downshift, I'm there. My brake, I'm perfect, and I don't got the big school bus brake that I feel like I'm in a Peterbilt and I'm about ready to slow the tractor down. It just works. And their stuff is built incredible. And they're cool people. So I follow their YouTube. They do a lot of cool stuff. And it made sense to me. I had bought that product through 2-Lane Life. I'm a big fan. You've heard me say it on our other video of Lance and Galen. They made a kit. So for those of you that didn't, and I have rears in there, like with the pegs come on. If you want to buy something where you don't know which pieces are going, I went through them and bought it as one click. Here comes my kit. Showed up in a day.
And piece it all together.
And the price was more than fair. So I've got about easily 5,000 miles on those floorboards now, and that shift setup, and I got to say I love them. So whether or not we entertain mid-controls in the future, to be determined, but right now they're filling everything I thought they would be, probably more. So super happy with that. Running the Joker Machine billets cover on my master cylinder for there on the brake, and we're running Motul fluid in brakes and the engine.
I'm running the same setup, same trash setup with the Apex boards and everything. Just the chrome and I think silver for some of the pieces, but it's much smaller. It's not as bulky as all the floorboards. Even they're bigger ones that are adjustable.
I like how you can move the mounts and you can move the board. And that seems stupidly brilliant, but up until recently, I know some other manufacturers have stepped up and done that, but where they lay is where they lay. This particular one, we can move those around, and then you can buy the little extenders or the lifts if you need them. So I entertain those little extenders, but for me, they're not. When I'm riding, my balls of my feet could be in the middle on that, and the weight's right where it needs to be. And then like today, when you and I went for a nice little rip to go hang out, you might move them around, or if you're bored on that long ride and your feet got to go somewhere, it still gives you the ability to move around. So I'm really happy with that setup.
Cool, man. I think that's most of the pieces outside the motor. So I know work us through everything you've done with the motor, drivetrain, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, starting with the motor. So I'm still to be determined about if I'm going to go with a big bore kit. This particular build does not have a big bore kit. It's a 107 motor. I run a SNS 475 cam.
Okay.
When I got the bike, the dealer, no, 18s don't sump. It sumped right away, noticeably. So I went with the SNS cam plate, their oil pump. Obviously, you change the bushing, all the essentials that come with that.
Okay.
For a 107, they said the 475 cam's a little bit too big. It's not. You'll hear it on the startup. It's got a great little lope.
Yep.
The thing builds incredible power. The Main Street Moto, Steve is one of the best dyno tuners in Vegas. I know we have another hero at Harley is incredible. A lot of the Southern California guys come, but Steve, I am the shit talker when it comes to dyno sheets because I don't care what your dyno sheet says. Humidity, heat, a good dyno guy will shut you up by moving numbers around. I asked Steve, tune this so it doesn't have any flat spots. I don't want this bike's got 20,000 miles and the headers are not all blown out purple. I don't want it to backfire. I just want it to be tuned to ride don't worry about fuel economy. Do what it's supposed to do. I don't care what the numbers say. Numbers came out to 111, 124. That's good for a 107. That's real good. But that's a testament to me. I'm not saying I created that. The right build or the right combo makes the right horsepower. So I don't care if you're a T-Man guy or Star guy or SNS or fueling or they're all available. It's that lift, that 475 lift works, and it pulls M8s we all know have grunt from miles deep. So I needed something to pull third gear up. This bike could run a seventh gear. Like I can pin this thing and I'm like, man, I could just wants to keep pulling. And that's I wanted usable power bands. I wanted a rideable power band. So if I'm lazy and a lot of people don't realize this, but you ride lazy sometimes. There's days I'm daydreaming, I might be riding to work or commuting and I'm not putting it all together and it doesn't lug. Or the day that I'm riding at like a 450 and I'm clicking up through gears and it's hitting power bands, it doesn't fall off on power. So those were my requests when he was tuning this, how to build a motor that is usable, plus I can go to ride forever. And that's the case. So we did that. It does have SNS adjustable push rods. It's got tappets, cuffs. They're tappet blocks. I had a valve spring brake, so we put SNS valve springs in it. So basically a full valve train. It's just missing the cylinders in the big bore kit. And I don't know if I'm going to do that. I can confidently tell you, my buddy Brandon, and we're going to get some people that's going to come on these and talk shit. My buddy Brandon and I laugh. We have never been beat yet. And what I mean by that is, you're riding a bike week and it's you and your buddies or 3 or 4 deep. There's never somebody that just checks up on us and walks off. It never happens. And that's, again, I'm not the greatest rider, but you're either riding above the curve or you're not. The bike will ride faster than what Leo can ride it. So it's doing well. And that's our own little family or friends joke. But if your friends are riding, you know what we're saying. There's nothing more fun yet humiliating than running down a sport bike guy. That's, to me, hilarious. And obviously you don't want to do it to where they're going to get hurt. But we'll go out to the lake and you'll run dudes down on GS6Rs and they just shake their head like, how do you do that? But if I truly believe if the bike had too much horsepower, I might not be able to ride it as smooth as I would if it didn't. So for those of you that want to talk shit and go my 124, well, blah, 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 whatever, cool. Just make sure you're riding it to its fullest. And I'm good with you doing that. It does it for me. It's a CMP air cleaner. I am a huge fan of Mike at CMP. That guy built the most cool turbos. He built Junior's exhaust. He's a true craftsman to me. So I'm a CMP air filter fan. It doesn't move. It hasn't rattled. The plastic or the lens is never discolored. It's just a well-built, handmade USA product, and I will totally refer you to that guy 100 times over. I wouldn't mind, and it will come before the big bore kit, and I know this doesn't make sense, I wouldn't mind putting an HPI throttle body on it, just the one up from stock, and an SNS or an HPI match the intake manifold, and that goes back to that understanding of fixing the factory's detuned parts. That factory intake manifold is cast, not that cast is bad, it's just not matched, and nobody finished it. So it's rough inside and fuel and air doesn't like rough. So it would be the equivalent to port and polishing it without doing head work. The valve train's strong on the bike, so we're good with that. So I think that will be the next thing that happens is just to move up one size on the fuel management and then put that that intake on there, and I'll see what maybe for a couple thousand miles that does. I did mention to you at one time in this thing, I run external breathers, which is they're CMP breathers. They're super Sano looking. I like his little billet setup, and I run a Moroso oil catch can that is on the obviously the other side of the bike, and you'll see it in the photos. That setup works for me. I don't dump a lot of oil out, but with maybe every 10 gas fill ups, I'll just drain it, and it's good to go. You'd be surprised at how much oil does come out of the heads, and it stopped issues on those sumping motors. It's obviously a little peace of mind for me. And then I'm running all the black chachas on everything. I don't think there's maybe a bolt left on the bike that doesn't have a chacho that shouldn't have a chacho. HPI pipe. Jimmy Light and the guys, this pipe to me is incredible. When you hear the startup, M8 sound like sewing machines. There's no two ways about it. That twin cam motor over there sounds so much better.
100%,
But I think this pipe sounds incredible, but it performs, it runs, and this power band works with this cam setup. So it's a golden ticket for me. And then I run a push rod in the clutch setup from Greg Williams. I don't know if you guys know about that little setup, but basically it's the adjuster rod, the factory 18, along with the sumping problems that like to push trans oil into the primary. That oversized clutch rod from Greg Williams stops that. It's an inexpensive $100 fix that makes that problem go away, and it's a better clutch feel. And then I run the AMI external, the hydraulic actuator, and then we run the AMI SDR lockout clutch. And I use factory plates, and I use Screaming Eagle springs. And I Jace made a comment in a few of your episodes ago, and I do fully agree with him. The clutch is a wear point. I don't want to break a compensator. I'll blow up a clutch disc. They're cheap. They're easy to fix. In the first 15,000 miles, I never had it slip or do anything, and then I got it hot like a dumbass, did a burnout, and ended up smoked the clutch on it. I just put factory plates back into new springs with that AIM setup, and it is killer for me. I know some people don't like lockup clutches. For me, game changer. Might not be the case with a cable clutch, but with the hydraulic setup, it's butter smooth. So went with that setup. But I think that pretty much encompasses everything. Maybe one of the future things I talked about the intake. I talked about the HPI injector. Maybe a good segue for one of your sponsors going into Team ThunderMax's. I do want to put a ThunderMax oil cooler system on it.
Cooler fan?
That with this climate we're in, it's ridiculous. And
especially hot out here,
with the Power Vision, I'm watching that temp, and when it hits, it starts to get disappointing at 280 on the exhaust temp. 300, it's burning you on the bike. And anytime we're in our summer, it's there. And we chatted with Millhouse once, and he kind of gave me some lowdown. So that's a product that's coming that I'll be putting on soon. So I'll give you my feedback on that. But I think it's a good setup. And for those of you who check out ThunderMax, I know they make great products, but that's a way for you hot climate guys to stay a little bit.
I run one. Nashville gets hot, but nothing like this. But I'll run one, and then running out to Born Free this year, going through Texas, it was like 105 the whole day, and we were like bombing through there. And
you guys had a long ride in
El Paso, Phoenix, that whole stuff, and like the whole time, bike ran like fine, no crazy heating or anything. So it was a great product that I should have put in earlier, one of those shoulda, woulda, couldas. I didn't do that. I'm a pretty big advocate of changing things before they fail. So when we put the swing arm in, obviously we redid the rear bushings. I personally don't like. I know Mad Monkey and a few other people make isolators. I hate them. I bought this bike to ride far. Let me back up. That's not a Mad Monkey thing. Mad Monkey makes a great product. I know they make them and A1 make I'm running a fueling vented dipstick. A1 makes one. It's a necessary product on an M8, but I don't like isolators. It isn't a Mad Monkey thing. I'm not a fan of that isolator. I feel that vibration coming through. Some people don't feel it, but a lot of little things. I don't run stock floorboards, so you take that rubber out of your hands. Kraus has an incredible, setup with their rubber isolated mount. I run a Biltwell rubber grip, so I'm trying to keep that vibration out of it so we can make those 500 and 700 mile days. But I
I did put that in the swing arm and I took them right out. Wasn't the thing. So I put factory bushings back in there. I did put neck bearings in it at 10,000. Every 10,000 miles, it gets neck bearings. So I did it at 10, and we just hit 20. We just did it again.
Okay.
So those are those little things with a little ounce of prevention. The bike always feels like it's running
ahead of it.
Tip top, and it doesn't fail me when I'm stuck by myself because I ride a lot by myself. So I don't feel weird little shit creep up that will haunt me, so to speak.
It's a good way to do it.
But and we took all the isolators off and, powder coated those. Alloy Art makes a really cool stabilizer piece for this. For those of you with HPI or any pipe with a deep U-bend that doesn't follow the front head, my buddy Junior figured out a way to do that. So that's coming back on. I've got that in the cabinet. Nice. So that's kind of a cool thing. And I'm sure that will help in some sense keep things in place. But other than that, what you can't see is that Moroso oil or catch can. And that's pretty much going to take it. I do run, like you said, the Motul oil. I'm a big fan of good oil. When it was something, we got away from synthetics and went back to a factory oil to slow those seeping around the rings. And then we're all good with the Motul. So that product's been nothing but stellar.
Cool. Awesome, man. Dude, thanks. That was like thorough, dude.
I mean, we can talk about bolts. Every bolt on the bike is stainless. Kyle got me turned on. You're an ARP fan, and Justin's got ARPs. I have got the boredom of like, okay, I hate the way that bolt looks. So then I off to McFattendale down the street, and there goes 10 more orders to Mike at Santoro, who will probably MF me like, why is this dumbass buy 10 at a time and not just buy the kit? And I told you the story. I finally did the engine mount, and then I did the up front on the left side by the kickstand, and that's been the last ones. And I don't know why. So the engine bolt is driving me nuts now. It's the one and only bolt that is not changing the whole bike. And I mean, literally every other bolt's changed except for that bolt. And I got told through the grapevine that Diamond, who does the other ARP light bolts, that they're, I shouldn't say ARP, the 12-point bolts, they supposedly make a motor mount bolt now for the M8. So I'm going to get that and anodize it because it can't be polished, blah, blah, blah. But I wanted the stainless cap screws, and if you see every bolt on the bike stainless. So that's one of those little details. That,
dude, that's one of those things, like it's the finishing touches, and bolts are like a big thing. Like, 100%. So I guess any other plans? Obviously, we read off a couple of possible future things.
I've got Alloy Art lower legs on order right now. They've been in order a few months, but that's not an anti-Alloy Art thing. There's just a lot of people that like them, and ever since they hit the drag catalog, they went from getting them from Justin at Alloy Art to every dealer in the country can get them now. And let's just face it, it's a bitchin' product. So that's coming. I did laugh. We heard you chat about this, Justin chat about it. By the time you add up Alloy Art lowers, drop-ins, fork tubes, billet trees, I think I just got close to the inverted price. But I'm a fan of traditional looking forks still. So you made a comment about the dynos without the fairings, how they've just got that look. To me, that's how I almost feel about the non-inverted fork. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're running Krauses or Big Bears, it's incredible. I love the billet lowers. But I think I'm going to run the Alloy Art lowers for a while, and maybe that whole setup gets sold down the line, and we'll try a Kraus. But that's what's coming, and then I'm going to have to obviously deal with that. So when those come, I'll refork oil it again. It'll probably be a good time to go through, and take care of that. That's coming. When I do that, I'm going to do the Kraus lower tree. It's debated whether I'm going to take my painted lower cover off.
Ask about that,
So that particular cover, whether will probably come off. And I'm excited about that. I like the little finish details of having, why do you need a lower tree? You don't see it because you don't see it. It's finishing it. But it does, I do believe in the rigidity of that aluminum versus that pot metal. And once you put the top on, you're like, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be. I know you just got a lower tree. So
it should be going on soon. So
passive aggressively envious of your lower tree, but it's a finishing touch. That's Sano. And that goes back to that overlapped labor. If I'm taking the fork legs out,
just do it all. Do it while you're there versus having to do it later.
So that's coming. We'll do the intake. We'll do the throttle body at some point. We are going to. I've debated whether or not this swing arm. I'm going to give my son credit. So this is a father and son piece. This swing arm is going to be flat gold. I did a little internet poll when we did it. Everybody throws their 2 cents in, and I was going to do the flat gold, and then I was like, all right, well then I'm going to do the flat gold, not shiny fork tubes, and then. I'm like, you know what? I really like my black fork tubes and silver. So if you look at a MotoGP bike or a dirt bike, aluminum swing arms are race swing arms. And when I went earlier in our episode, I told you I wanted race under and custom top. It fits and I love it. So if the pipe's doing what it's supposed to be doing and it's clean and the swing arm matches, it brings out it pulls the silver from the stainless screws. So that's where we got from there. Other than that, I might entertain, like we talked about, changing bars and risers. I'm a little scared with the shoulder, but man, I want to make some products. I got ideas on different reservoirs. I want to move these. Again, great product, but Clean Moto makes a new cool product. I like, Crimes, that setup and their crew. That's a cool little product. I might do that, but we're going to make our own. So it's nice to try to find the little details of things to do. And then at that point, it might be a leading edge. If I do a 124, it's going to probably be a leading edge. Okay. And then I'm back to what color, whether it might be silver to match the swing arm, or do I go black fin? So it kind of disappears, but we'll see. But that might not be till next year. But for you asking me my big picture plans, that's about a year's worth.
Okay.
And for those of you that don't know, you're more than welcome if you follow my Instagram at Leo Massaro. I am an avid fun photographer. I don't make $1 at it, but I like to shoot stuff. And in between buying bike parts, I want to buy lenses and camera bodies. And my only friend, which is you, that knows that, the pain of that. You think it sucks to buy an $1,800 pipe? Buy a $3,000 lens. Or Jace, if Jace is watching this, he just got a 50 millimeter 1.8. And man, I think, him and I were joking, like, might have to sell the Jeep to buy that lens, like.
Dude, it's two of the more expensive hobbies you can have. Motorcycles and cameras kind of do. It's brutal. Although not necessarily a hobby, but
For those of you that team Canon, he's a Sony trader, but whatever.
Sorry with that. But yeah, thanks for having me out. It was fun, like having somebody usually I'm on like Google Maps like a day or two before, finding 5 or 6 locations and getting there early and going to find stuff.
Oh, dude, I'm the cruise director. When we go do long rides, thank God I've got a great core group. And again, shout out to my son, Justin, Brandon, Kim, Nick, and Jordan, my son-in-law. That's my ride family. They just let me do my thing and leave me alone because they know I'm going to give them a good product and we're not going to go somewhere dumb. And I pick good restaurants and scenic routes. But that
was awesome having spots already planned out. You sent me pictures, like it was so easy and like takes a lot of that extra stress having to worry about finding a spot or just make do with the spot. I took all that.
Well,
so awesome.
I couldn't be more appreciative of you driving. You went from Tennessee to Vegas to let me be a part of your episodes in the spotlight, which is incredible. So thank you and Emma. Shout out to Memphis Sage and to ThunderMax for supporting the program. I'm a huge fan of the Get Bent program in general. I've been following you since day one. But that being said, we both shoot photos, and I may not shoot as good as you, and I don't. I'm a fan.
Say that.
But I will tell you, it's fun to go, hey Ben, does this work? Does this work?
Yeah.
I look for places to shoot this bike or my friends' bikes all the time. And luckily I work for Caterpillar and for our local dealer, and I'm out in the field a lot, so I spec out a lot of weird little places.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from you shooting, and for those of you that follow Ben, his pictures are incredible. So it's kind of fun to find the right place to put. And hey, for those of you that think it's cool to shoot your bike in front of graffiti, don't. Then you learn the lesson. A bike with a lot of movement or a lot of in the paint needs to go to a very still place to take a picture of.
Create too much noise around a bike. There already has a lot going on.
Exactly. And I say that because Instagram, everybody loves and proud of their bike. And if you want to learn and you're shooting on your iPhone or whatever it is, follow him. Look on the website. Obviously, you made it here. Watch a good photographer stage a bike or how to put it. And I learned today we don't have to put it necessarily right up against the door. It might like 10 feet out. And Jace, who's an incredible photographer too, knows how to shoot. I should follow both of you guys since you're my friends and those leads of how to get there. But I sure do appreciate you guys coming out and doing what you do for our community.
Yeah, thank you, man. This was awesome. I appreciate it. So 100%. Cool, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to check Leo out. I think you just gave out your info. I'll drop that all down on the bottom. If you got any questions about this build or anything for Leo, feel free to reach out to him. Drop a comment below. We'll try and make sure we hit those questions up. I'll drop a Get Lowered link in with a link to like a lot of the parts on this bike. Feel free to check that out. Check out my site for merch, Patreon. There's some behind the scenes stuff on there just if you want to support the channel. Bye.